In 1910, British explorer Robert Falcon Scott embarked on one of the most ambitious and perilous expeditions in history, to be the first to stand at the South Pole. His journey was filled with hope, courage, sacrifice, and ultimately tragedy. What began as a race for national pride and scientific discovery ended as one of the most heartbreaking stories of exploration ever told. At the dawn of the 20th century, the Antarctic was one of the last truly uncharted frontiers on Earth. To reach the South Pole meant not only glory for the men involved but also prestige for their nations. For Britain, it was a matter of honor. Scott, already known for his earlier expedition to Antarctica, wanted to cement his country's place at the forefront of discovery. What he didn't know was that Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen had secretly redirected his own expedition south, determined to beat the British to the pole. The stage was set for a dramatic race across the most inhospitable land on the planet. Scott's expedition set sail from Britain in June 1910 aboard the ship Terra Nova. His mission was not only about conquest but also about science, collecting geological samples, studying wildlife, and mapping uncharted land. His men were brave and well-trained, but their equipment and transport choices would later prove fateful. They brought ponies, motor sledges, and dogs. Yet the ponies quickly died in the brutal conditions, and the sledges broke down. Most of the hauling had to be done by the men themselves, dragging hundreds of pounds of supplies across the endless white desert. The Antarctic tested them at every step. Temperatures dropped to -40 degrees Celsius. Blizzards buried tents and froze food supplies solid. Every mile was won with sweat, frostbitten hands, and sheer willpower. Scott's team marched for weeks, sometimes blinded by snow, sometimes starving. Yet despite the hardships, the thought of raising the Union Jack at the pole kept them moving forward. The Antarctic tested them at every step. Temperatures dropped to -40 degrees Celsius. Blizzards buried tents and froze food supplies solid. Every mile was won with sweat, frostbitten hands, and sheer willpower. Scott's team marched for weeks, sometimes blinded by snow, sometimes starving. Yet despite the hardships, the thought of raising the Union Jack at the pole kept them moving forward. On January 17, 1912, after more than 2 months of marching across the ice, Scott and his polar party, Edward Wilson, Lawrence Oates, Henry Bowers, and Edgar Evans, finally reached the South Pole. Their dream was moments away, but what they found was devastating. A black flag fluttered in the wind, and a note left in a tent confirmed their fears. Roald Amundsen had arrived more than a month earlier. The Norwegians had claimed the glory. Scott's diary recorded his despair. "Great God! This is an awful place, and terrible enough for us to have labored to it without reward." Their victory had turned to ashes. Now, they faced the far more dangerous task, the journey home. The return march was brutal. The men were exhausted, frostbitten, and malnourished. Edgar Evans, the strongest of the group, was the first to die, collapsing after a fall on the ice. Supplies dwindled, and frostbite claimed fingers and toes. Lawrence Oates, his feet destroyed by frostbite and suffering from gangrene, knew he was slowing the group. On March 17, he left the tent, saying the words that became legendary, "I am just going outside and maybe some time." He never returned. Scott, Wilson, and Bowers pressed on, but their strength faded. With only a few days of rations left, they were trapped in their tent by a raging blizzard, just 11 miles from the nearest supply depot. On March 29, 1912, Robert Scott wrote his final diary entry, "For God's sake, look after our people." Then silence. The 3 men froze to death, entombed by the Antarctic snow. 8 months later, a search party found the tent. Inside lay the frozen bodies of Scott, Wilson, and Bowers, along with Scott's diary. The words revealed not only their suffering but also their courage, their loyalty, and their refusal to surrender even in the face of certain death. Back in Britain, news of their fate shocked the world. Scott was mourned as a hero, his death seen as the ultimate sacrifice in the name of discovery and duty. Statues were raised, books written, and his story became part of British legend. Though Amundsen had won the race to the South Pole, it was Scott's tragic struggle that captured the imagination of generations. His expedition became a symbol of human endurance, bravery, and the thin line between triumph and disaster. The story of Robert Falcon Scott's final expedition reminds us that exploration is never just about reaching a destination. It is about the spirit of the men who dare to go. Scott and his companions did not conquer the South Pole, but their courage ensured they would be remembered forever, etched into the icy winds of Antarctica.